stop explaining yourself. Right now. Today. Every time you open your mouth to justify your worth, you're actually destroying it. I know that sounds harsh, but stay with me here because this might be the most important thing you hear all year. You've been taught your whole life that if people don't understand you, you need to explain better. Speak louder. Make your case more clearly. But here's what nobody told you. The more you explain, the weaker you look. The people who truly succeed, they figured out something different. They let their results do all the talking. And today I'm going to show you exactly how. Years ago, I sat across from a client who'd just been passed over for a promotion, third time in 2 years, and he couldn't understand why. I tell them everything I've accomplished. He said, I explain exactly why I deserve it. I make sure they know my value. That was his problem. He was so busy explaining his worth that he never actually demonstrated it. He talked about results instead of producing them. He described his potential instead of showing it. I've watched this pattern destroy careers, relationships, and dreams. People who are genuinely talented, genuinely capable, stuck in a loop of justification that gets them nowhere. Here's what I've learned after decades of studying human behavior. Your words mean almost nothing compared to your actions. People don't believe what you tell them about yourself. They believe what they see with their own eyes. The moment you start explaining your worth, you've already lost. Because worth that needs explanation isn't worth at all. It's a sales pitch. And nobody trusts a sales pitch. Let me show you a better way. Let's talk about what's really happening when you feel the need to explain yourself. You're in a meeting. You share an idea. Someone dismisses it. And immediately this urge rises up in your chest. You need to explain why your idea is good. You need to make them understand. You need to prove yourself. So you start talking. You give context. You provide background. You list your qualifications. You explain your reasoning in excruciating detail. And the more you talk, the more their eyes glaze over. The more defensive you sound. The more desperate you appear. Sound familiar? Some of you probably do this every single day without even realizing it. At work, at home, in relationships, you're constantly making your case, constantly justifying your decisions, constantly trying to get people to see what you see. And it's exhausting. I know because I used to do exactly the same thing. Early in my career, I thought communication was about making sure everyone understood me perfectly. If someone didn't get it, I explained more. If they still didn't get it, I explained differently. I would twist myself into knots, trying to make my point absolutely crystal clear. You know what I got for all that effort? I got labeled as someone who didn't know when to stop talking, someone who was insecure, someone who needed validation. That wasn't who I was at all, but that's who I appeared to be. And in life, perception becomes reality. Here's the uncomfortable truth. When you explain yourself constantly, you're sending a very specific message. You're saying, I'm not sure my work can stand on its own. You're saying, I need you to validate me. You're saying, please understand my value because I'm not confident you'll see it otherwise. Is that what you want to communicate? Of course not. But that's exactly what over-explaining does. Think about the people you respect most, the leaders you admire, the colleagues who seem to glide through every situation with ease. Do they spend their time explaining themselves? Do they chase people down to justify their decisions? Do they write long emails defending their choices? No, they do their work. They produce results. They let their track record speak. And when someone questions them, they don't get defensive. They just point to the evidence. That's power, real power, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself because everyone can already see it. Now think about the opposite. Think about people who are always talking about how great they are, always explaining why they deserve more, always making sure you know about their accomplishments. How do you feel about those people? Probably a little suspicious, right? A little skeptical, because if they were really that good, why do they need to keep telling you? This is the trap. The more you explain, the less people believe. The more you justify, the weaker you appear. It's completely counterintuitive, but it's absolutely true. I've watched brilliant people sabotage themselves this way. They have real talent, real results, real value. But they're so afraid that others won't see it, they talk it to death. And in doing so, they undermine the very thing they're trying to promote. Some of you watching this right now are stuck in this loop. You work incredibly hard. You deliver real value, but you're not getting the recognition you deserve. And your instinct is to explain more, justify more, make your case more clearly. But that instinct is wrong and it's costing you everything. So if explaining doesn't work, what does? Here's the shift that changed everything for me. Stop trying to convince people. Start compelling them through evidence. There's a massive difference between those two approaches. Convincing is about words. Compelling is about proof. Convincing tries to change minds through argument. Compelling changes minds through demonstration. Let me give you an example. Imagine two salespeople. Both are selling the exact same product. The first one talks non-stop. Features, benefits, comparisons to competitors. He has an answer for every objection. He can explain everything in perfect detail. By the time he's done, you know more about this product than you ever wanted to know. The second one barely says anything. She asks a few questions about your needs. Then she gives you a demo. She lets you experience the product yourself. She shows you results from other customers, and then she just waits. Who do you trust more, the explainer or the demonstrator? It's not even close, right? Because the first person is trying to convince you. The second person is compelling you through evidence. This principle applies to everything: your career, your relationships, your entire life. I remember working with a young executive who was struggling to get a team's respect. She'd been promoted quickly, and some people resented it. So she responded by over-communicating. She explained every decision in detail. She justified her leadership constantly. She sent long emails outlining her thought process, and it backfired completely. Her team didn't gain respect for her. They lost it, because she was acting like someone who needed their approval rather than someone who deserved her position. We changed her approach entirely. Instead of explaining, she started executing. Instead of justifying decisions, she made them and moved on. Instead of seeking approval, she focused entirely on results. 6 months later, same team, completely different dynamic. Not because she'd convinced them of anything, because she'd shown them through consistent, excellent work. Here's what I need you to understand. People don't form opinions based on what you tell them. They form opinions based on what they observe. You can explain yourself until you're blue in the face, and it won't matter if your actions tell a different story. But when your results speak clearly, you don't need to say a word. Think about it like this. Your work is evidence. Your behavior is evidence. Your track record is evidence. And evidence doesn't need explanation. It needs presentation. Stop being a lawyer arguing a case. Start being a scientist presenting findings. The lawyer tries to persuade through rhetoric. The scientist just shows the data and lets it speak. Some of you might be thinking, but Allan, what if people genuinely don't understand what I've accomplished? What if my results are being overlooked? Fair question. And here's my answer. If your results are being overlooked, explaining more won't fix it. You have a visibility problem, not a communication problem. The solution isn't to talk more, it's to make your work more visible. Document it. Quantify it. Put it where decision makers can see it. That's different from explaining. You're not making a case for yourself. You're presenting facts. There's a huge gap between, let me tell you why I'm valuable, and there's what I deliver this quarter. One sounds desperate. The other sounds confident. All right, let's get specific. How do you actually make this shift in your daily life? First principle: document. Don't explain. Instead of verbally justifying your work, create systems that make your results visible. Keep track of what you accomplish. Quantify your impact wherever possible. Build a portfolio of evidence that speaks without your voice. When performance review time comes, you shouldn't need to explain anything. You should be able to point to a document and say, here's what I delivered. No persuasion required. Just facts. This works in personal relationships too, by the way. If someone questions your commitment, you don't need to launch into a speech about how much you care. Your consistent actions over time should make that obvious. If they don't, more words won't fix it. Second principle: let silence do the heavy lifting. This is something I've observed in every successful negotiator, every effective leader, every person who commands genuine respect. They're comfortable with silence. They don't rush to fill gaps. They don't over-explain to avoid awkward pauses. They say what needs to be said and then they stop. Silence is powerful because it communicates confidence. When you keep talking after you've made your point, you signal uncertainty. You signal that you're not sure the point landed. You signal that you need reassurance. But when you state your position and then just wait, that's strength. That's someone who trusts their own words. Try this in your next conversation. Make your point, then stop. Don't add qualifiers. Don't soften it. Don't ask if it makes sense. Just stop talking and hold the space. It will feel uncomfortable at first. Do it anyway, because that discomfort is the feeling of growing stronger. Third principle: respond to challenges with evidence, not emotion. When someone questions your worth, and they will, your instinct will be to defend yourself, to explain, to justify. Resist that instinct. Instead, respond with calm evidence, not defensive arguments, just facts. Someone says, I don't think you're ready for this project. Weak response, but I've been working here for 3 years and I've handled lots of complex projects. And I really think I could do a great job if you just give me a chance. Strong response, I delivered the Henderson project under budget and ahead of schedule. Happy to discuss specifics if that would be helpful. See the difference. The first response begs for approval. The second response presents evidence and offers nothing more. You're not trying to convince them. You're simply stating facts. What they do with those facts is their business. Fourth principle, invest energy in work, not perception management. Here's a trap I see constantly. People spend enormous amounts of time trying to manage how others perceive them. They craft careful emails. They position themselves strategically in meetings. They work harder on their image than on their actual output. This is exhausting and ultimately futile because perception follows reality. Eventually, what you actually produce matters more than how you've marketed yourself. The best perception management strategy is simply doing excellent work consistently over time. Every hour you spend explaining yourself is an hour you could spend improving. Every email you write justifying your decisions is energy you could invest in better decisions. Let the explainers explain. You go produce something remarkable. Fifth principle, trust time. This is hard for impatient people, and I count myself among them, but it's essential. Results compound. A track record builds. Credibility accumulates, but it takes time. And during that time, you'll be tempted to speed things up through explanation, to shortcut the process with words. Don't trust the process. Do excellent work today and tomorrow and next week. Eventually, your body of evidence will be so overwhelming that no explanation will be necessary. I've seen this happen so many times. Someone who felt overlooked, who felt undervalued, who was desperate to explain their worth. And then 5 years later, they're undeniable, not because they finally found the right words, because their results finally became impossible to ignore. Now, let me be straight with you. This approach requires something that most people aren't willing to give: patience, discipline, and most importantly, faith. Faith that if you do excellent work, it will eventually be recognized. Faith that results matter more than rhetoric. Faith that you don't need to convince anyone because your work will do it for you. That faith gets tested constantly. You'll watch people who explain more get promoted faster. You'll see smooth talkers take credit for things they didn't do. You'll feel invisible while people with less talent but more self-promotion seem to succeed. And you'll be tempted to join them, to start explaining, to start selling yourself, to abandon the quiet confidence of letting results speak. I won't lie to you. There are environments where self-promotion wins in the short term. Places where the loudest voice gets the resources. Companies where perception matters more than reality. If you're in one of those places, you have two choices: adapt to their game or find a better environment. But here's what I've observed over decades of studying success. The explainers might win battles, but they rarely win wars. Because eventually, people figure them out. Eventually, the gap between their words and their results becomes obvious. Eventually, their credibility collapses. Meanwhile, the people who let results speak, they build something that lasts. Reputations that can't be torn down because they're built on evidence, not spin. I think about someone I met early in my career. Quiet guy, never promoted himself, never explained his value, just did exceptional work year after year. For a while, he got overlooked. Flashy people got the attention. He could have gotten frustrated. He could have started playing the explanation game. He didn't. He just kept producing. 10 years later, he was running the company, not because he convinced anyone he should, because his track record made it obvious. That's the long game. And it requires faith in something our instant gratification world doesn't value: the power of sustained excellence over time. Will you get frustrated along the way? Yes. Will you sometimes feel like giving up? Absolutely. Will there be moments when explaining seems like the easier path? Every single day. But easy paths lead to weak destinations. The hard path, trusting your work, letting results accumulate, refusing to beg for recognition, that's where real success lies. So here's where we land. You have a choice to make. Every single day, you choose how you present yourself to the world. You can be the person who explains, who justifies, who makes the case for their own value again and again, hoping someone finally listens. Or you can be the person who demonstrates, who executes, who builds a track record so undeniable that no explanation is necessary. One path is exhausting and ultimately ineffective. The other path is hard but leads somewhere real. The world is full of explainers, full of people talking about what they're going to do, why they deserve more, how their potential is being wasted. Talk is cheap and the market is flooded, but people who consistently deliver, people whose results speak so loudly that words become unnecessary, they're rare, and rare is valuable. I want you to imagine something. Imagine waking up tomorrow and deciding you're done explaining, done justifying, done making the case for your own worth. Instead, you're just going to work. You're going to produce. You're going to let your results pile up until they become undeniable. Imagine the freedom of not needing anyone's validation, of knowing that your track record speaks for itself, of walking into any room with quiet confidence because you're not there to convince anyone. You're there to deliver. Imagine the relationships you'd have, where you don't need to explain your value to your partner, your friends, your family, where your consistent actions have already made your worth crystal clear. This isn't fantasy. This is available to you, but it requires a fundamental shift from talking to doing. From explaining to demonstrating, from seeking approval to trusting your work. The people who figure this out, they move differently through the world. They don't chase, they don't beg, they don't explain. They just produce, and the world comes to them. You've spent enough time making your case, enough time hoping the right words would finally unlock the recognition you deserve. They won't, they never will. Words are empty without evidence to back them. So stop explaining. Start executing. Let your results build until they're louder than any speech you could give. Because at the end of the day, worth that needs explanation isn't really worth at all, but worth that's demonstrated, worth that's proven, worth that's visible in everything you do. That's the kind of worth that changes your life. And it starts the moment you close your mouth and open your hands to do the work.